Welcome to Grid Talk. My name is George Howson, and today we are here to preview the 2025 Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, officially known as the Formula One AWS Gran Premio del Made in Italy e della Emilia-Romagna 2025, around the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edina Ferrari. Got it in one. I'll take that. Thankfully, better known as Imola. Joining me today, we have a trio of Grid Talk legends: Ruby Price,
Hello.
Sophia Richmond,
Hi.
and Louis Edwards.
Hello.
So let's dive into the preview for this event. Now, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix has only been on the Formula One calendar since 2020, but back in the good old days, this was known as the San Marino Grand Prix. So, Louis, this is a race that's got history going all the way back to the 1980s. But what are the standout events of Formula One around Imola for you over the years?
Yeah, I was famously watching Formula One in the 1980s. Um, yeah, to be honest, I've only really known Imola to be the Emiliano-Romagna Grand Prix. The early days of when it was the San Marino Grand Prix are a little too early in my F1 mind. Obviously, when people think of Imola, most people think of '05 and the battle between Alonso and Michael Schumacher. A race which I have watched on F1 TV. You know, when you can go back and watch like old races. I did a whole watch through the '05 season, and yeah, I did have watched that race, and it was really good. It's a very tense race, but you know, in recent years, I think of the time that was it pole or P2 was cruelly snatched away by from Lando because he was like that much over the white line on his qualifying lap. It was back when the McLaren was utter dog, and it was a really summing moment to see Lando get close to pole position at the time. Now it's frustrating when he doesn't.
Yeah, especially as we will eventually get onto for your predictions, Louis, because you keep backing him to get pole position, but it's not working out. But will things change this time around? We'll have to wait and see. Ruby, like I said, this is a race that goes back quite a ways if you include the good old San Marino Grand Prix days. What are your favourite memories from Formula One around Imola over the years?
I mean, you've just obviously talked about the historical focus. I'm going to talk about the 2020 return to Imola. I actually think that whole season was brilliant, but that's obviously not the question. But 2020 we had Verstappen and Bottas battling with Max, capitalizing on Bottas going in too deep into the penultimate corner, and it actually looks like Max has lost out. But like Max being Max just makes it work. And then obviously a couple of laps later, tire blowout for Max getting him beached. Alex Albon dropping it of his own accord whilst fighting Checo Perez in the racing point. Daniel Ricciardo and Danny Kvyat fighting for the honor of the podium. And at that point, any Danny Rick podium, like post Red Bull, was very welcome, particularly that season. I think he got two or three. And of course, Mercedes winning their record-breaking seventh consecutive constructors title, a record they extended in 2021. But yeah, I love Imola. I think it, should be on the calendar forever, but that's probably not going to happen.
No, sadly not. Its contract is running out after the end of this season, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the show. Same question to you, Sophia. What are your main memories of Imola in Formula One over the years?
I mean, quite similar to Ruby. I mean, 2020 with the safety car, George was running in the points in a Williams until he spun. Like that was one of the key moments. You had 2021 that started the Lewis versus Max battle of the season, with the rain as well coming into play. Lando as well getting the podium at the expense of Ferrari as well. So there's been some good races. I mean, the wins have been very the same for the last three races. Obviously, we didn't race in 2023 due to the flooding, but the mid-pack battles have been very good off and on over the years. And I think that's probably going to be the way to watch this weekend coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great track. It's a track that I want to see around in Formula One for the foreseeable future. But we'll see what happens with that. We'll see if Liberty choose to extend their contract. But yeah, the midfield battles have been great. I mean, you could say that, the same guys usually won this race over the last 3, 4 years, but the same guys won pretty much every race everywhere for the last 3, 4 seasons. Max Verstappen's won a few races in Formula One. Just there's some breaking news there for you. But let's have a look at McLaren because Louis, Oscar Piastri is coming to this one on an absolute high. Of course, he has won the last 3 Grand Prix in a row. He's won 4 of the opening 6 rounds of the season. Lando Norris had a better weekend in Miami, winning the sprint race, second place during the Grand Prix. Some people saying some mistakes that cost him the victory overall in Miami. But is this getting to the point now where Lando Norris needs to get a victory? Because Piastri, I think, if he wins this weekend, only Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna have won 4 Grand Prix in a row for McLaren in their history. And, Piastri's the odd one out then. He's the only one who's not a champion, for now at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really impressive feat that Oscar has done at the start of this season. But I kind of think back to the discussion me and Tom Horrocks had at the end of the review podcast that we did for the Miami Grand Prix. And it's not all doom and gloom for Lando at this point in time. We are only 6 races down. It's still 18 more races to go. So it's not the end of the world. But what we were kind of, focusing on is it's just those little moments that keep kind of cropping up for Lando every now and again, be it an issue in qualifying, be it something during the race. He could have maybe won that race had he not gone so aggressive with Max into turn one. It really did cost him quite a lot. But yeah, I think it's getting on pole is definitely a key thing. But even then, it's a very long run into turn one. I think it's technically turn two, at Imola, and we know what Lando could be like off the line sometimes. So it's just going to be about really either getting on pole, nailing the start and keeping it, or at least starting P2, nailing the start, and then getting a really good run into off the start. But yeah, it does feel like you want to kind of cut Oscar's momentum right now. You don't really want to keep letting him win and win and win because eventually just that points gap becomes too much. And it's like, oh, the gap's like 10 points. Ha ha ha. Oh, wait, it's suddenly like 50 points. And now it's like, what are you going to do? It's a lot of wins that you're going to have to get to close that down, which we kind of found out last year when we sort of went, oh, Lando's chasing for the championship. It was like, oh, wait, he's still got loads of points to make up. It's you don't want to let it slip away too early.
Yeah, definitely not. That championship lead can, of course, build up very quickly, as Lando Norris knows. It's not on the same kind of level, nowhere near the same kind of level as what it was 12 months ago between him and Verstappen, but it's his teammate as well. And we know how good that McLaren is. I mean, I still can't get over how much they won the last race, like 30 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. But Louis did touch on it there, Ruby. It is very difficult to overtake around Imola. The main critics of Imola say it's impossible to pass around, and that could very much, make the advantage for whoever gets around the first lap in P1. And it's not necessarily who gets on pole position because it's also who gets the best start, who gets through the Tamburello chicane the best, and around the rest of the lap. It really does feel like it's a challenge for Lando Norris to keep that, even if he does have P1 at some point. There's just something that always seems to keep happening that puts him in P2 or worse.
Yeah, I mean, if we're basing it entirely off the start, then Lando Norris has got no chance this weekend based on, historical form. Louis, do not put him as your, top step for your predictions this time around. But yeah, you've touched on it, George. Like, it is a difficult circuit to overtake, but there are overtaking opportunities at Imola, most notably, obviously, going into that Tamburello chicane. If you're quick enough down that main straight that we've got going into the sort of penultimate area of the circuit, and of course, there's this chicane at the sort of top, the very top of the circuit towards like the final sector as well. And Lando has done well at Imola previously. He's been on the podium for 3 of the 4 races we've had here since its return. But as has been said, he needs to find a way of halting Piastri's momentum. And if there's anywhere to do it, it's probably here based on that historic side of things. But he just needs to make sure the gap doesn't get too big. We did see him hunting down Max Verstappen in the latter stages of 2024. But similarly with that points difference as well, it was just too big a gap to actually do anything. And that was what we saw in Miami as well. Oscar Piastri had the gap and Lando Norris was chasing him, but the gap was too big. So Lando just needs to be there from the start. But his starts aren't great.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And yeah, even though Oscar Piastri kind of backed off towards the end of it, he was absolutely comfortable in that, saving his tires, saving his fuel, saving his engine. Especially around a long season like this where they've got such limited engine components, that really can make a difference over a campaign. But yeah, let's talk about Max Verstappen though. Obviously, he's done very, very well around here, as most tracks as he has over the last few years, to say the least, as well. But interestingly, Sophia, he's got 3 poles this season at 6 races. He has half the pole positions, despite, I think everybody will agree, especially himself, doesn't have the fastest car by some distance. But over 1 lap, that Red Bull is absolutely electric. And Imola, like we say, is a very hard track to overtake around. So could Max get a surprise win here?
I could see it. I mean, the thing is, as well, Max, how he situated his car is so different looking at like Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson comparing the Red Bull, the second Red Bull car as well. But that also shows his driving style. As you mentioned, he's won each race since 2021, minus obviously the 2023 cancellation. This is one of his better tracks. I mean, let's be honest, most of his tracks are good, given the fact that he's won so many different circuits. But I think it will be good to see and interesting to see. I don't think he might get pole. I think he'll be close to it, but it also depends. He has always a better start off the line compared to say Lando, compared to Oscar as well. If you look at on Sunday races when they do the little metrics about how fast they go in the 0 to 60, he is consistently one of the faster over the other two drivers. So I think that will be quite an interesting one to see. But we've seen even Max battle in Imola take Lewis 2021. Again, there is opportunities to overtake, but I don't think Max will get pulled, but I think he will be in contention for the win because of how good he is off the line and how he does do some interesting overtakes as well at corners that aren't really known for overtaking, even in Imola. Again, not many places for the opportunities, but for some reason he's able to put his car in different ways than other drivers probably would not even think about doing.
Yeah, for sure. And as we saw in Miami, people criticized him for the way he was defending against the McLarens, but people seem to forget that it looked like we might have got rain at that point. And if we got rain, then it's a completely different race. You've got two McLarens that have to double stack at that point. It becomes awkward. And again, Max Verstappen's rather good in the wet weather as well. So there is that. But I think the bigger question is, Louis, when it comes to if Verstappen, I mean, it's a big if his Formula One spelled backwards, as the great Murray Walker used to say. But if Verstappen is either up there or ahead of the McLarens at the start of the race, McLaren, you would think, would have both of their drivers second and third. A similar situation to what we saw in Japan. Do you think they're going to learn from the mistakes in Japan, though? Because they just seem to not want to take any risk whatsoever at Suzuka, as you very passionately put at the time. Do you think they're going to learn from that mistake for Imola if that was to happen?
The hope would be that they would. I mean, I said in our Miami preview that Max just seems to have a thing with this car with the tracks with a lot of high speed corners. Imola's not as many high speed corners, but still a fairly decent amount. And it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be tougher than most tracks to probably keep these McLarens behind here. I mean, the rundown between like the final corner to the second corner is so long. I think it would be harder than it would be in, let's say, Japan to keep those two McLarens, but like to keep those two McLarens behind, like he did there. But this is McLaren. McLaren seem to have a nice pattern of if they're not in first place at the end of the first lap, they'll kind of drop back a couple of seconds, sit there for a while, and then just kind of think about something to do for a while, and ultimately have not enough time to do it. So, and this is not just Japan; it has been multiple races in which we've thought about, especially last season, where we thought, "Ooh, maybe McLaren should be winning this." But the hope is that McLaren have learned from their mistakes. They need to understand that Max isn't going to make mistakes. Max is incredibly consistent. Max is incredibly good. And they need to be a little bit more aggressive. If they have both Lando and Oscar behind, regardless of which order they're in, they need to play a team game, really think about how they can kind of attack Max from both angles and not just sit there and give him the easiest time of his life. as they did in Japan.
By Max Verstappen's standards, anyway, the easiest time of his life. I'd never describe being thrown around by a Formula One car at that speed as an easy time, but I guess maybe for him it probably is. But an interesting thing I've just noticed while looking up the constructors' standings here. I mean, McLaren, you could argue, are playing it safe, trying to go for the constructors' championship. They're very much doing that at the moment. They have the same amount of points as Mercedes and Red Bull combined in second and third place in the standings, which is just ridiculous. And as a McLaren fan, I never could have dreamed that was happening. Absolutely enjoying this season from that point of view. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you left us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Also, if you're listening and currently aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please consider helping us out with a like and a subscribe. And also head over to our Patreon. I'll give you a bit more detail about that. We had an exclusive show go up there recently about the goings on, shall we put it, at Alpine. And on that subject, Ruby, and you were one of the people that was on that show, as was I. One of the things we covered was the fact that Franco Colapinto is back in Formula One. Now, this is the track that I believe you'll know pretty well from both Formula 2 and Formula 3. Sophia's shaking her head. She's not agreeing with me. But anyway, he did very well last year when he super subbed in. At Williams, of course. How do you think he's going to get on this weekend? Because as we kind of touched on in Beyond the Grid talk, those top 10 positions at the moment seem rather on lockdown. You've got the traditional top four, as it were, over the last few seasons: McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, and also Williams have kind of solidified themselves in there as well. It's probably asking a lot for Alpine, either Alpine for that matter, to score points in Imola.
Yeah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about this topic. It's definitely been something that, we really haven't said enough about this season. But yeah, Franco Colapinto, regardless of whether it's the right decision or not, I'm glad it's finally been made. Is he a bit crash happy? Yeah, he wrote off the Williams on several occasions in the less than half a season he ran in 2024, and reportedly has crashed the Alpine in testing on more than one occasion, according to Karun Chandok. So as if we're expecting him to jump into that car and do better than Jack Doohan, I think we're, reaching a little bit there. But at the same time, he's shown that he's fast. He's shown, that, he has the capabilities of performing in Formula One. And you can teach a fast driver consistency, whereas you can't, it's much more difficult to get a consistent driver to go faster. So yeah, in terms of how he's going to perform, it's going to be hard for him to break into that top 10. There is so much quality up there at the sharp end of the grid, and it's going to require accidents ahead of him. It's going to require cars not performing as they should be doing. And really, it's going to require an absolute miracle from Alpine to get any performance out of their car, because they just don't seem to know how to run it very well. But more importantly, I just hope Alpine give Colapinto some media training, because that boy keeps getting into hot water, and his rabid fan base of Argentine stands will defend anything he says as culturally Argentine.
Oh, way to sit on the fence, Ruby. But
when have I ever sat on the fence in my entire life, George?
True. That is very true, and that's part of the reason why I admire you. But anyway, yeah. So it's an interesting situation at Alpine, to put it very least. If you want to hear more about it, go over and subscribe to Patreon. We run it full in depth at the time, me, Ruby, and Owain, just going over the many mismanagements and bad decisions over at Alpine. But Sophia, now obviously Colapinto well from the F2 and F3 days. Jack Doohan as well from that as well. Ruby doubts that Colapinto is going to be able to perform on the same level as Jack Doohan, at least immediately, not be able to make a massive difference. What is your kind of take on it? And also, if you want to do, you can give a little mention to the management situation at the moment as well, because that's sort of a whole dimension to it too.
Definitely. I mean, when you were talking about Franco and experience, he's actually only been on the track twice in his career. Even though he raced in Freca, he actually wasn't able to attend the Imola round due to other commitments. But the 2 rounds he did in Formula 3 in 2022, he won the sprint race, qualified P12 as well. So obviously he was on reverse pole, so obviously that did have some kind of good positions for him. And then in 2024 in Formula 2, he won the sprint race again as well, and then finished P5 in the feature. So he doesn't have more consistent knowledge of the track, but when he has obviously podium and got points. So I think that's going to be quite a good thing. How he drives, he is better in a qualifying fast push one lap opportunity. So I think that's where Alpine has also been kind of doing better, as we've seen in some of the qualifyings going into Q2, like the occasional almost attempted to Q3, whereas the actual race day, both Alpine and Franco are not the best suited for that. So I think that will be quite interesting to see. And then let's throw in obviously new management, new conversations. Obviously, Fabio is taking over for the time being after Oliver Oaks stepped down due to personal reasons. That's also going to change, I think, the dynamic as well because there has been people that have been, let's say, vocal about this decision and the different characteristics of it. Obviously, there's been so much going on in the news and different teams kind of getting involved, both F1 and even F2 as well, teams having conversations for it. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes because of everything going on. And I think if there was any other race weekend for Alpine to do well, this is it. Like they need to get maybe not points, maybe not, I mean, podiums are way out, let's be honest, but close to points, I think is probably what's going to be needed for them. Obviously, they were one of the last team to get points as well for the, out of all the constructors as well. So we will see, but they've had so much change over the years between drivers and staff management as well. They've not been consistent enough for it. So we'll see. I mean, Franco, I believe it's only 5 races. Well, I quote, 5 races that he is being monitored for, which is one less than Jack. But these are his tracks as well. These are the tracks that he's known now we're back onto European. So I think they made it a little bit unfair to Jack because a lot of the races that he was racing for this season were quite unknown for him because obviously some of these weren't even in the F2 and F3 calendar as well when he was racing in those divisions as well. So it's a little bit unfair, I would say, but yeah, like I said, all eyes are going to be on Franco, and obviously with how the Argentinian fans are as well in general, if they don't do well, they're going to be very, very complex, I would say, this weekend.
Flavio Briatore being a bit unfair. No, that's not like him. Oh, of course not. But it's a very interesting point you raised because yeah, it's not on the same scale, but it feels a little bit like the Lawson thing, where he had 2 races at Red Bull around tracks he's never driven before. And then as soon as before he goes to a track that he do pretty well from like Junior Formula and Super Formula and stuff like that in Suzuka, they get rid of the guy. But hey, yeah. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. Let's not do that. We've already gone into some of that, to be fair, in the other show. So, but yeah, Alpine very much needing a bit of a miracle. Ferrari too needing a bit of a miracle as well, Louis. Coming into this one, some people saying the fourth, fifth fastest team. They were there with Williams kind of in Miami. I mean, Albon finished ahead of both of them on pure pace. And of course, obviously Monza, the Italian Grand Prix is the big one, but this is their real home race. This is deep in Ferrari territory, as it were. This is the closest Grand Prix to where the Ferrari base is in Maranello. So how are the Tifosi going to be reacting if they're battling with Williams for like eighth and ninth?
Well, George, the Tifosi and the Italian media, they're all very rational people, and they will take it with a nice pinch of salt if Ferrari don't perform well this weekend. And the likelihood is they won't perform well this weekend because they haven't really performed all well all year. They definitely need something to bounce back because Miami was pretty messy. Not only with the general performance of the drivers, which was probably below what they had would be happy with. I mean, I'm sure Charles is absolutely livid after crashing it before the sprint race. But yeah, Lewis will be hoping for a little bit more clarity in the team this weekend. Yeah, as long as the Ferraris are not like behind each other or having to deal with each other in any way, um, they might be able to actually focus on what each driver is doing and actually, try and maximize the points. Um, but as soon as it becomes like them right behind each other, they'll probably have another panic attack or something.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for them to have a bit of a kerfuffle when it comes to the team orders and stuff. Ruby, how are you seeing getting Ferrari getting on this weekend? Because Hamilton did get a podium in the Miami Sprint in pretty incredible circumstances, admittedly. I'm clutching at many straws now saying this, but it's a car that it can perform all right. I mean, Charles Leclerc got a podium in Saudi. It can perform all right in the right conditions, but I'm not so sure that Imola's going to suit it really.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Ferrari are having a shocking start to 2025. Like, we're only really a quarter of the way through the season, but even with their first ever sprint win and that sprint podium that you mentioned from Lewis Hamilton as well, it's not been the season for them that we were expecting. The car they've brought to the 2025 season is not the most competitive. You might even think maybe just go back to the 2024 one. Williams have shown that the evolution model works for them at the very least, and that's who they're fighting with. So their 2024 challenger was way ahead of the Williams. So, maybe they might solidify that fourth place in the Constructors' Championship with the 2024 car. But, Leclerc went faster with damage. Lewis is having new team teething issues. They've not won a title since 2008. Their last driver's title was 2007, but they've certainly had the talent since then to be able to do something about that. But I don't think that Ferrari dropping heads is something that will solve it, unless it's maybe their strategy team or their internal comms channels. And because clearly they need to talk to each other. Maybe they need to do what they were doing with Fernando Alonso and speak in Italian, because there's clearly some misunderstandings going on here. But yeah, with Fred Vasseur, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari are running out of excuses. There was rumours of a new floor and some reshaped side pods being brought to Imola, but now Fred's downplaying the size of the upgrades being brought. Maybe they might bring the Lego cars to Imola. That might give them some performance advantage. They'll be doing bits, pun intended. But we're not going to see a jump in performance that Tifosi are crying out for, and I'm also not going to apologise for said pun.
That was a very well constructed pun there, Ruby. But yeah, let's move very swiftly on. Ruby has said that Imola should be renewed, that it should be on the Formula One calendar forever. I'm in agreement with that personally, but like I've touched on a few times during this show, Sophia, it is a track that a lot of people don't really like because of the lack of overtaking. If I'm being totally honest, I think it's probably going to go on the race rotation deal with Barcelona or something like that in the future. That's probably what's going to happen. I don't think it should happen, but it's probably going to happen. But what do you think? Should it stay on the calendar indefinitely? And yeah, what are your kind of thoughts on it, really?
100% it needs to stay on the calendar. It's one of the iconic ones as well. And we say obviously some of these circuits that are iconic should stay on the track, but then obviously look at Spa's been taken off. Well, no, not Spa. Some of the other circuits being taken off. The thing was, when the news came out about the renewal, it was saying it was because Italy had two races on the 24 race circuit. Yet, do we not see America having three? Like, this is the thing. And the thing is, everyone hates on Miami, but Miami has had some good opportunities, let's be honest. But then Vegas has had good racing, but it's a money grab as well. But they're actually losing as well. Like, how tickets are, the cost, like, you can buy tickets for like $50 now to go to those races. Like, I'll probably go instead. But then obviously you can't get rid of Coda. Coda is the iconic USA track, but the thing is, they're justifying the reasons about dropping Imola due to having Italy having two racetracks, but then they're not even batting an eye for USA. Like, this is where I'm just like, I don't understand their thinking. And again, USA does not have history fully compared to Italy in F1. And again, obviously Ferrari, this is technically their home race because it's the closest to the factory as well. So like, and you can't get rid of Monza. Monza is a temple of speed. That is also another iconic that has a lot more action, a lot more overtaking, I think, in my opinion. But it needs to be renewed. I think it should be on calendar all year round. Where they're talking about like obviously that rotation, obviously Barcelona and Madrid are doing that. Don't get me started about Madrid because that's a whole nother conversation. But I don't understand these rotations as well. And they want to expand out, but obviously 24 races is their limit, which makes sense. But then they're also ignoring other tracks who should have been on circuits as well. But the fact that, again, going back to the original point, the fact that they're saying Imola should not be on the calendar due to having two Italian races, we're seeing three in the USA that aren't even producing a fraction of what it is in racing, fan base, financials, opportunity as well. Because if you look at obviously all the feeder series that also race as well, you're cutting them because most of the feeder series don't go to America. That's three races that they don't have the opportunity as well to work. If you're cutting Imola, Formula 2, Formula 3, Porsche, even Freca as well occasionally will come into that play as well. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. but it needs to be on the calendar every year continuously, pretty much.
I agree. I agree. And we also technically have two races in Spain contracted on the calendar next year. We've got the Mad Ring, which is the Spanish Grand Prix. Yes, that's its actual name, the Mad Ring. And Barcelona has a contract for next year, but not I don't know what the race is going to be. So that's another race, another country that's got two races. So using the whole countries shouldn't have two races logic is absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, the USA has three, but money, but they're actually losing money with Las Vegas. You're all right, yeah. So I think that might go pretty soon because it's only purely about the money is Vegas. But if they're losing money, they're not going to stick around, are they? But yeah, let us get on to the predictions for the Imola Grand Prix, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. I'm not going to do the full name again, don't worry. But Louis, who is your prediction to get on pole position, the podium places, and the bowl prediction as well for this weekend?
Okay, it's a decision between head and heart, and also the predictions result table as it stands right now. So on pole position will be Lando Norris. I will back this dead horse until it can no longer crawl, even though it's dead, so it technically can't crawl. But Lando Norris will get on pole. My podium, I am going to go Lando Norris to win. Second place, Oscar Piastri. Third place, Antonelli. His first home race. He was showing potential. I saw all these looks. He was showing potential in Miami, and he's at least raced at this track before. And my bold prediction, which is not Antonelli on the podium, by the way, is gonna be Franco Colapinto. Will Q3 and points.
You stole my bold prediction. I'm still gonna go for it, mind you. Especially with Ruby mentioning the the Russell thing I used to do, Russell for the points. I'm gonna do Colapinto for the points. That's gonna be my thing going forward, just for the fun of it, I think. But yeah, I'll get onto mine shortly. Ruby, what are your predictions this weekend?
It's okay, you don't have to worry about not getting points for a bold prediction like that, George, because we're not using points for bold
It
predictions.
means something to me, all right. It means more.
Of course. But yes, pole prediction, I'm going to say Oscar Piastri. Like, obviously, whilst Verstappen's been on pole for the last two Grand Prix, I feel like Piastri arguably didn't maximise his laps. So I think after a short reset and a return to a more traditional circuit, Oscar can return to the front grid box. Podium, I'm going to say Piastri first, Norris P2, George Russell P3. I think McLaren are strong enough to be out front by themselves once again, as we've seen several times this season. And Russell has had a mixed bag here previously. Sophia's already mentioned the crash that he had with Valtteri Bottas. And also, no, Sophia didn't mention that. Sophia mentioned the crash behind Kimi Räikkönen under the safety car. But yes, I've mentioned the crash with Valtteri Bottas, but the Mercedes is generally consistent enough to be in the picture for the podium if Red Bull don't have a car that matches what Verstappen needs. And in terms of a bold prediction, I'm continuing the Alpine hype train, if there is such a thing. But Pierre Gasly to finish P4. Can't explain why, but I just feel like Imola has the potential to throw Pierre Gasly into a position he has almost no right to be in whatsoever. But the Enstone team has been quick here previously, and every now and then Pierre Gasly just has one of those weekends where he's just up there. Maybe this could be the weekend for 2025.
I mean, he did get his only win in Formula One in Italy, different track, but he did do it. Honestly, I would have accepted Pierre Gasly getting points as a ball prediction, but P4, fair play, Ruby. Yeah, you're right. You never sit on the fence. Absolutely living in the with that one. Sophia, what are your predictions for this weekend's race?
Oh, I'm playing it safe because after these last two rounds of predictions have not gone my way at all. I think pole will be Oscar Piastri. My podium will be Max, Oscar, then Lando. Now my bold was almost true last week until it wasn't for the sprint race and Liam Lawson tapping Fernando Alonso. I think Alonso will get points. Finally, after 7 rounds. He was on track for it. Mind you, he's not done the best in Imola over the last couple of years, P19 and such, and start from pit lanes. But I have faith in the number 14 that he will get points this race weekend. That's my backing for the next couple rounds for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, Alonso having a worse average finish of this season than we had his debut campaign for Minardi in 2001. But who, of course, was based just down the road from Imola? Minardi. Could be a sign, probably not. But anyway, like I'll go with that. I mean, I might well change mine for the official Grid Talk predictions. Lee will tell you a bit more about them at the end of this. But I'll go with. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna play it safe. I'm gonna go bold in general. I'm gonna go pole for Max, win for Lando Norris, second Oscar Piastri, third Max. Bold prediction. Call Pinter for the points. I mean, Louis already had it. But yeah, that was going to be my thing. It's going to be my thing until he gets points. I might be waiting a while with that one. But yeah, our predictions league, Louis. I did mention it then. How's that all going? Has anyone been rising up the standings recently?
Oh, I don't know, George. Has there? Has there been someone climbing up the rankings? I've not spotted that so far. It's you, George.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Wow.
But the last podcast that we did for the Miami preview, you got a decent haul of points in Saudi, so I was like Mystic George. You got to listen to what George had. And not only does George then get the podium for Miami completely spot on, Piastri, Norris, Russell. He then also says that Alonso wouldn't score points and said that both Hadjar and Lawson would score the same amount of points, i.e. 0 across the weekend. So yeah, he's now finds himself at the top, joint with Tom Downey, other Grid Talk host, both on 25 points. Kind of in rows of two at the moment because their joint third is Aaron and Sophia. Joint fifth is me and Owain. Tom Horrocks in seventh and Ruby at the bottom. But yeah, so if you want to get involved in our predictions challenge, so every week I send out a list of prediction questions to our hosts. It of course always includes podium and pole position, and then there's 3 wild cards. So if you head over to our socials, they get posted just before FP1, and then the results get posted not long after the race, provided there's no lengthy investigations going on, and that may alter all the points. But yeah. Go check out our socials and you'll be able to find that. And then you can also let us know your predictions in the comments.
Nice one. Thank you for that, Louis. Ruby, anything you want to promote?
Just where people can find me on socials if they want to. I'm at Ruby Rose Price on Instagram and Threads, and at Rubes.Bluesky, whatever it is on Blue Sky.
Nice one. Sophia?
Yeah, I work with George with Formula Reports, so we cover everything F1, F2, pretty much everything racing. I can find it on all social media at Formula Reports and also on their website. We'll be covering, obviously, Imola. We have F2 and F3 coming back, new driver changes, some teams might be missing. It's gonna all unfold, but you can find us at Formula Reports.
Yes, I had heard a rumor about a certain potentially, allegedly Russian-aligned team potentially not being there in Imola. So we will be there to bring you that. Absolutely busy all weekend in the many formulas going around the Imola Grand Prix this weekend. If you want to find Grid Talk, we are also available on YouTube where race reviews are recorded live, as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search for Formula One Grid Talk for our big back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to the race results. Thank you to Jared, Bradley, and Holly Eagle for supporting us on Patreon as well. If you want to support the show further, sign up to Patreon for some exclusive content, like I said, beyond the Grid Talk, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And a little shout out at the end of the show, depending on which tier you go for. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first one to know when new weekly episodes are released. And we'll be back soon for plenty more Formula One content. Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast, and goodbye.